We're combining all the best old school wisdom with all the top new school methods to bring you the optimal way to coach and play the great game of baseball. This is the 80-20 Baseball Masterclass with Coach Bo.
Welcome, coaches, the 80-20 Baseball Masterclass, our weekly get-together here, the 80-20 Baseball Podcast. Coach Bo with you. As always, I'm fired up to be here. Got some good stuff to talk about today. Trying to get our coaching game better. And in part one today, we're going to discuss something that starts to happen as the season progresses, as we get to the middle of the season, as we get to the end of the season, something that coaches naturally start to do and something we want to avoid because we want to have a strong finish. So we're going to talk about that in part one. Part two, we're going to talk about what comes first, what is necessary as an underlying foundation if we want to build connections, better connections with our players, build player buy-in, build better connections and get better relationships with our players so they can follow us and they want to follow us as coaches. We're going to talk about the thing that's not directly related, but indirectly related, but necessary to allow us coaches to do just that. And that is build better connections with our players. So as always, it's great to be here for our weekly get together. The 80-20 Baseball Masterclass is designed to talk about the big needle movers in detail. And so I think what happens a lot of times, I wanted to talk about this because I see a lot of this in the baseball community. I should say I hear a lot of this. I read a lot of this. A lot of coaches think that you got to cover everything. And then they talk about you got to focus on the details. And what I think happens is the misunderstanding of this connection. The details are indeed vital. And if you've listened to last week's podcast, if you've listened, and most of you have, if you've listened to almost all these podcasts, you'll see that the detail is very, very important here at 80-20 Baseball. The difference is here at 80-20 Baseball, you and I, we talk about things that are big needle movers, and then we break those down and into a detailed approach. So we have a detailed approach. We discuss a detailed approach, a detailed plan to attack the big needle movers, knowing and accepting that as youth coaches, and even any coach for that matter, we have a limited amount of time, a limited amount of practice time, a limited amount of player attention. There's a lot of coaches that want to cover everything, and there's a lot of coaches that preach that and discuss that. And many times their fallback statement is the details. It's all about all the details, all the little things, all the little things. And I think there's a misconception here, and this is a thought that I wanted to share with you. I've been thinking about this for a while now. We care about the little things here at 80-20 Baseball. We all do. If you've listened to this, we're all on board with caring about the little things. We care about the details. We just want those little things and details to fall under the umbrella of big needle movers. We want those to go towards big needle movers. Let me give you a specific example, just a simple example. There's a lot of them, but here's a specific example. The hitting approach, the hitting plan. We want to talk about the details of the hitting plan. We want to get better at the hitting approach, the hitting plan. We've talked about that at length here. But an example of something that we do not want to spend a lot of time talking about, the details about, would be something like lineup construction. Lineup construction can be beneficial, but I wouldn't spend a lot of time working and thinking about the lineup construction. Put some thought into it. Your better, more productive hitters should go at the front. More productive hitters go at the front, but you want to put a bunter behind a speed guy, behind a slow guy, behind this guy, behind this, left, right, left. I'm not saying you shouldn't have some thought in lineup construction. I just wouldn't sit there and go, how many lefties versus righties in order, and this guy behind this guy and that guy. Put the most productive players towards the front, the players that have earned it, the players that have earned it on the stat sheet, not batting average. Don't use batting average. Use more productive things. On base plus slugging is better than batting average. It's still got flaws. But however you find that production level at your level, if you have more advanced stats, it's a lot easier. Obviously, in the major leagues, they have things like WAR, which are just make it super easy to see which players are more productive. You slide them up. You want them to get that extra at bat every couple games, maybe every game, maybe every third game. They're going to get more at bats. And over the course of the season, that's probably going to net them 10 or 12 extra at bats, which could net your team a run or two or three or four or five more in the course of a short season. And that may be the difference between second place and first place. But I wouldn't spend a lot more time than just saying, who are our most productive hitters? Let's push them towards the front. What you want to spend some time on are creating hitting drills and building and designing hitting environments where the hitting plan is worked on and worked on and worked on. The details are hammered out so there can be clarity on what you want, what you expect from your players, and why they're doing what they're doing. The base running drill that we broke down last week, you can hear the details that I put into that base running drill. The details are important. But if you try to cover everything as a coach, you will not be good at anything. If you try to cover everything as a coach, you will not be good at anything. You want to build good connections, good relationships with your players so there's buy-in, they respect you, the environment is a pleasant place to be, it's a safe, respectful place to be, players are respecting each other, they're hustling. You want to design a good environment. And then you want to hit the big needle movers. What are the things that drive the scoreboard, runs scored, and preventing runs on defense and pitching? What drive those the most? And then you break down the details, the authenticity of a drill, the little finite parts of a drill insofar as it's making it better, and not just necessarily adding layers just to add layers, but those details that can make it more efficient. I love being detailed to make things more authentic and more efficient, and even a little bit more challenging. What are some details that can make things more efficient, more effective, more authentic to a game situation, and even more challenging? Those are the details that I like. So as an intro to this episode, our weekly get together here, I wanted to touch on that. So yes, the details are important, but I think that it's so important that we stick with the details. And this goes for life, right? Details are important, but let's make sure that they're towards those details, fall under and move those big needle movers. Those are going towards big needle movers. It's not all about the small things. If you cover all the small things in baseball as a coach or anything, you're going to be mediocre at best at everything, at best. However, if we focus on the details and the small things within those big needle movers, wham, that's when we get the big time success, the big gains, a much better team environment, and more wins. Flat out. So wanted to start off this episode with that. Now let's get into part one here. The season is in full swing, and hopefully so are your hitters with less than 2 strikes. Now this part of the season, and everybody's probably at a different spot, percentage of season completion. Everybody's at a little different spot. Southern states typically are a little ahead of the northern states, and some northern states don't really get into even things like high school baseball until the summer. But most of you that are coaching baseball right now are middle of the season, getting towards the end of the season, middle end, and this is where inexperienced coaches start to fade. Their expectations start to lapse. Their rules start to slowly erode away. Their energy starts to dwindle. The motivation from the beginning of the season starts to dwindle. Don't let that be you. Don't let that be you. There's a huge competitive advantage, and we owe it to our players to go hard, to give them our best through the entire season. We've committed to that. I say this, go hard, and then take the summer off if need be. Go hard through the spring season and take the summer off. One of the biggest downfalls of year-round sports, or year-round being in the same sport year-round, there's a physical part of it, but I think young kids can just kind of grind through that. They're young. Pitching arms is a little bit different. Resting the pitching arm might be different, or if you have an injury, resting that. But I think kids can go year-round doing exercise. Of course they can. They can run around year-round. They'll be fine. I mean, as long as they're getting sleep each night, they'd be fine. But the motivation starts to dwindle. The motivation is hard to keep up. The energy level is hard to keep up if you're playing year round. So as the season gets towards the middle end here, think about this. Instead of fading, go hard and then say, we're going to take the summer off, or maybe you don't coach during the summer, or maybe during the summer, you change the environment more into scrimmage type of things, or you play games during the summer. I recommend a balance. I think kids need a break mentally, but I would make sure that whatever you do, don't let your expectations start to lapse. Don't let your expectations and your rules start to lapse, because if they do, you're not just going to lose them this year. These players that are coming back to play for you in the next season, you are going to have a very difficult time getting them back on track, or at least having that respect, because they'll have seen what happens. And if you start lapsing with your expectations, and you start lapsing with your rules, and you start lapsing with your energy, they'll see that as a sign. If you work with them in following years, and as a coach, typically you coach more than 1 year, they're going to remember that. They will remember that. And so when you come out next year barking, and you're telling them we're going to do this, this, and this, and you come out sounding like George Patton, and they know, and they remember, and they can recall exactly how last year finished or last season finished, don't expect them to buy in to what you're saying very well. They're not going to buy in very much to what you're saying. So you have to stay consistent. It's better to be consistent and then take time off. It's better to be consistent throughout one season, finish the season, be consistent throughout the entire entire season and then go on vacation all summer and get back at it in the fall. Because what you do is if you're going to take a break, it should be a defined break, not a, I'm going to start taking it easy as the season moves along here. Because if your rules start to erode and you stop enforcing them, this is the time of year. Every coach is really good. Almost every coach is really good at enforcing their rules if they have outlined them clearly at the beginning of the year. Almost every coach is really good at enforcing them early. But as those rules and those boundaries and expectations get pushed and they kind of get nudged slowly, they do. That's what kids do. They push the boundaries. That's part of it. They push it. That's part of growing up. They push the boundaries to see what they can get away with in life, what they can do in life. And that's okay. But we have to be firm and stay the course with our expectations and our rules. The most experienced coaches, the coaches that have really figured it out, the ones that know exactly what they're doing, and this can be all of you, and I hope it's all of you, are those that stay consistent throughout the year and enforce their expectations. They bring energy to the park every practice throughout the year, no matter what, even if it's practice 26 versus practice 2 or practice 1. They're bringing energy. And there's another reason why you go back to when I say don't try to critique everything. Don't try to comment and correct everything a player does. You have to conserve some energy. So what I see a lot of is coaches, and this is hard to go back now. It's going to be tough to rewind the clock. But if you're a winner, a Northern State coach, and maybe you're getting into some stuff in the summer, do not come full throttle early. One, coaches, you're going to dilute your message. You come full throttle early, players, you're going to dilute it. You're going to rub them the wrong way. But more importantly, you're going to dilute your message. You're barking, you're talking. Take a breath. Don't feel like you need to coach everything all the time. Let the kids kind of figure some things out on their own. Kind of spread out the workload amongst the players to kind of learn and feel things out in the drills. You don't need to correct every error they make. You don't need to bark at every bad call the umpire makes, because you're going to probably burn out. And then it's going to be really difficult to stick with your rules, your expectations. So this all ties together. And I say, don't try to critique every single thing that a player does physically wrong. Now, if it's a hustle thing or a disrespect thing, or they're bullying a teammate thing, or they're bad mouthing the umpire thing, jump on that every time. Jump on it, enforce it. But here's another thing. If you got good rules and you have clearly defined rules, you don't need to spend a whole lot of time with that. They break the rule and you just said, all right, you're not playing next game, or you're not going to start next game, or we're going to bear crawl. And then that's it. There's no arguing. How can they argue? They signed up. You gave them the rules. They signed the rules. Their parents agreed to the rules. Everybody agreed to the rules. They broke it. You don't have to waste a lot of energy after that. You can have a little heart to heart with them and tell them that you're a little disappointed and give them some praise too, and share that. Better coaches conserve energy better. It's like a win-win. You're actually a better coach and you conserve energy. So you have more energy at the end of the year. You have more energy throughout the year. So coaches, as this season is getting middle end, bring the expectations, bring the energy, stick with it, stick with those rules, enforce them even when you don't want to enforce them. Continue praising, praise often, praise loud, and don't feel like you need to critique everything. Don't feel like you need to argue every call. Oh, and speaking of arguing calls, that's probably like what I said about an inexperienced coach and a sign of an inexperienced coach earlier. The number one sign of an inexperienced sports coach, number one sign of an inexperienced sports coach, for the most part, there's a few that do this that are very experienced, but it's a very small percentage. The percentage like flip-flops as you get older and more experienced, I should say, which is typically older, less arguing with the ump. More experienced coaches, better coaches argue way less. There's a direct relationship with that. There's always the outlier. I get it. There's always the coach that likes to bark, but for the most part, the more experienced, if you want to look like an experienced coach, don't blow a gasket when there's a bad call. Walk out calmly, talk to the umpire. We broke this down in an episode not that long ago, and I gave you a 2-step plan, how to handle umpires, how to handle their bad calls. And if you do that, you're going to look and appear, not only are you doing your job better, but you're also going to appear as a coach that's got things figured out a little bit better. You're going to look like a more experienced coach. So that's the biggest red flag to me when I'm coaching against other coaches, when I see other coaches, when I go watch baseball games. Inexperience, the number one easiest way to find or see inexperience in a coach is to see how quick they blow a gasket, or how often they argue calls with the umpire. How much are they focused on the umpire versus focused on getting their team better, focused staying in the moment and making the best of what the cards they've been dealt. And also, that doesn't mean you can't go address the umpire, because there are rules that need to be enforced, and they may have messed up on a rule, or maybe you can get a second opinion from another umpire on a better angle of the viewpoint of the play or whatnot. But you want to look like an inexperienced coach. One, start to fade late in the year. Start letting your expectations slide. You'll look inexperienced. Two, argue with umpires. Just arguing with umpires, yelling at umpires, that's a big red flag. So I'm going to be blunt. There's no time for that. I got no time for that. No time at all for that. You work umpires the best by staying calm. You also build that consistency with your team, and the real true buy-in is when you finish the year with a strong energy level at practice, your expectations are upheld, and that is a huge competitive advantage getting into the middle and end of the year right there. That's a huge competitive advantage, and it will lead to more wins for your team in just a flat out better environment. All right, part 2. A lot of coaches talk about building connections, rightfully so. We want to build better connections with players. We have to build connections like buy-in. How do we get buy-in? We build connections. We want to seek first to understand, then to be understood. That's one of Stephen Covey's 7 habits of highly effective people. Holds true in coaching, absolutely. We want to get player buy-in. We want to build connections. We want that to continue on. We want to always build connections, because if we don't build a connection, then there cannot be a transmission, a transfer of knowledge and coaching pointers, the transfer of knowledge, the transfer of what we want our players to get from us. There has to be a connection. There has to be a connection. I'm recording this on my computer. All right, I have a desktop, so it doesn't have a battery. I have a desktop, a little Mac Mini that I plug into the outlet. If I unplug it from the outlet, I got no connection, and so I have no way to get what I'm talking here and sharing through the microphone. If the microphone's unplugged, if there's no connection between this microphone that I have to my computer, then my message is basically just getting heard by the walls here in my home office, my home studio. And that's not a good place for any knowledge to just stay. If we want to connect, we have to build connections, right? We all agree on that. So building these connections, the number one thing I think you need to do to facilitate, this isn't a strategy towards how to specifically communicate and build connections, but this is indirectly. You have to put those routines in. You have to build routines that players can memorize, or at least as a team collectively can work together to memorize these systems, these routines, such as a warm-up routine that is consistent, that you are not sitting there having them. You don't want to have to sit there and tell them, go, all right, go, and then remind them, all right, we're doing back pedals now, forward, side shuffle. That should all be automated insofar as that it's automated amongst the players. And first off, they love autonomy. Kids love autonomy. We all know that. So give it to them, and then it buys you more time to build connections. Less time running the practice. It's like what they say, like, you can't work on the business when you're working in the business. A lot of you have heard that phrase, and it holds true in coaching. Build up systems, routines as best you can. And it's like a couple episodes back, I talked about having fewer drills. One of the biggest parts of having fewer drills, one of the biggest advantages of having fewer drills, is the players get to know them and they know how they operate. And that doesn't mean they're going to perfect those drills or those skills within the drills right away, or even by the end of the year, but they know how to set the drill up fast. They know how to operate the drill automatically through the team, through the players. So you don't have to run them through the entire drill and orchestrate the drill. You can have them self-sustain and kind of self-automate that drill as a team. And it's great because when you have like 12 players, 10 players, 20 players, all those brains and minds working together, they're going to remember it. I've never had a team not have down pat the warm-up routine, the dynamic warm-up, the arm warm-up, the leg warm-up, the dynamic warm-up routine, and the throwing routine within about 2 weeks. Within about 4 practices, if you're a youth team, 2 practices a week for 2 weeks. After 4 practices, they have almost the entire thing dialed in, like 99%. In fact, they may even go a month or 2 without messing it up, and they might need a little refresher here and there. But a little refresher on how to do the drill, on how to run the drill, on the steps of the warm-up routine, the throwing program. I just use those as 2 specific examples because every team should have those for sure. How your other drills kind of shake out might be a little different, but you definitely need a physical warm-up drill, a dynamic warm-up, and you need a throwing routine, whether that's at the beginning of practice, at the end. I prefer at the beginning, but you have those routines. Those should be on autopilot. So then you can focus a little bit more on building those connections. You have to buy yourself more time, because if you are trying to orchestrate and trying to direct the entire practice, the drill, everything, if you're trying to direct it, you're not going to be able to work and connect with the players. You're not going to be able to work on some of those connection pieces. So there's a lot of coaches out there that rightfully talk about building better connections with their players, getting better player buy-in. Well, one way to get player buy-in, or the best way to get player buy-in, is to get more time, is to buy more time. You want to get better player buy-in, buy more time. Also, by giving them autonomy, you're showing them that you trust them. You give them some trust, they'll reciprocate. So you give your players that trust to run it on their own, with you overseeing it, of course, not off in the dugout talking or over talking with another coach or doing something over here eating a corn dog by the snack bar. No, you're right there. In fact, you're in the mix. You are in the drill, but they're running it. They're running it so you can work work on the business. You can work on the team, not in the team. You're working on each player and not burning up a bunch of calories trying to lead every drill and every step of every routine, not wasting or allocating our bandwidth in areas that it could be conserved. It could be we could conserve bandwidth in certain areas by automating and setting up a foundation where these kids on autopilot. So you conserve bandwidth in one place so you can put it in other places. With internet connections, you hear about bandwidth and it's like, well, why are certain times of the day, sometimes the bandwidth in neighborhoods is slower? Or why is bandwidth sometimes slow down? And they'll say, well, you have a bunch of neighbors. I know this isn't always true and technology is getting better, but for years it was because, everybody's at home at night or even like the electric. Don't, run your stuff at night when there's less electricity being used during the day kind of idea. So you have that bandwidth, as I say bandwidth, because we all know, we all talk about bandwidth a lot in today's world. And you have a certain amount of bandwidth that you have and you want to allocate it better. And so you allocate that bandwidth towards building better connections by conserving it in other areas by automating those routines, those systems, those drills, those expectations. And a big trick to that is starting early, getting those put in, and also having fewer things that need to be remembered along the way. Just fewer tools, but keep those tools sharp. Keep those tools ready to go. Have every player know how to use all those tools. So you have fewer tools. It takes less time to teach them how to use each one of those tools. And they're going to perfect and get really good at using those tools because your toolbox of things that you're giving, you're not giving them a toolbox and saying, hey, this is the team toolbox. It's got 50 tools in it. We're going to get to the Sawzall, in week 14. Well, you might not even get to the Sawzall, but you definitely want your players to master using the hammer, the drill, the leveler, the handsaw, etc. And then over time, you can add more things, but be cognizant of how we are using our bandwidth. And if you want to build connections with players, you're going to have to, there's only a certain amount of time in practice. Practice 2 hours, you got to take from something else. And I'm telling you, you don't need to take from something. You can give it away, give away the responsibility to the player so it gets you more time. Give it away. Let them use their bandwidth to running the drill, the routine, the throwing program, the dynamic warm-up, or your favorite ground ball drill, your favorite hitting drills. Let them run it. Let them use their bandwidth because they like to use bandwidth. They want that. They do. They want it. And then it also allows you to conserve bandwidth. It's like having a computer with 8 cores. I don't know much about cores, but I know an 8-core computer is better than having a 4-core computer, right? Why not have a 15-core team where 12 of those cores are players and you have 3 coaches, and that's 15 cores versus just 3 coaches trying to run the whole practice. Let those other 12 cores fire up and use some of that. All right, so the season is in full swing. Hopefully your hitters are with less than 2 strikes as well. You got to get firm and stay firm with those expectations. Don't let your expectations and rules start to lapse. Keep the energy up, and if you need to take the summer off, take the summer off. If you need to spend less time on Facebook, less time watching TV, but make sure you get to see that show that's coming out, Ted Lasso. Ted Lasso, I think, comes out in June. So save some energy to binge that because you're going to want to watch Coach Lasso. If you don't see any other show the rest of the year, watch Coach Lasso. And the show is titled Ted Lasso. It's worth the monthly charge. You can binge watch it probably in 1 month. So get the Apple. It's like Apple TV Plus or Apple Plus TV. I don't know. It's like 10. I had it free with my cell phone plan. It was free. I don't know if it's still free, but when I go to log on in June, I don't watch Apple TV for anything else, but I'm going to, I think it comes out like middle of June, Ted Lasso, Coach Lasso. If you don't watch anything the rest of the year, watch that. Oh, actually, watch that and go watch Draft Day with Kevin Costner. Man, oh man, I was watching some clips on that. I don't know how I got pegged on YouTube. It hit me on YouTube. They got me and I was like, oh man, I was watching Draft Day. Oh man, you watch Draft Day, the movie, and Coach Lasso, and you just watch those and study those guys, forget about it. You're going to be so much better as a coach. You're going to be so much better and it's entertaining. Kevin Costner does a great job in that movie Draft Day, and Ted Lasso is funny. I love Ted Lasso, the show, the series. I loved it because it was funny. It was well written. It was funny. I don't think it's Frasier funny, but it's definitely funny, and it has such a valuable coaching lesson, and it's sports related. It's fun. I don't know if it's something you'd watch with young kids, but you can test that out, kind of go from there, but definitely something you want to watch. If you can just catch, I think the episodes are like 45 minutes. You catch an episode a night for every other night, or maybe you watch a couple episodes one night and then a couple nights later, you'll be done with the season, the series pretty quickly. Ted Lasso, it's coming up here. And so stay up with your energy level. If you got to take the summer off in terms of coaching. And in part 2, we talked about building the infrastructure, building the autonomy, giving the autonomy to the players to run all these routines and drills for the most part, while you look to improve the drill and also build connections. So it's really a good way to also look for ways to improve it when you're not trying to run it step by step. If you do that, you're going to have less bandwidth to look at ways to improve the drill, make it more efficient, and you're going to have much less bandwidth when it comes to building connections with players. So get your players to memorize the systems, the routines, the procedures in practice. Get them to memorize them. They'll memorize them pretty quick. Let them run with those while you allocate your bandwidth in other areas, and it's a win-win-win all around. Next week's episode, we are going to discuss and learn from what made Bob Hurley Sr. a Hall of Fame coach. Bob Hurley Sr. is a basketball coach, well known. His son, Bobby Hurley, played at Duke. I don't know if you remember watching the 1992 Final Four. Bobby Hurley and Christian Laettner, Duke, they won back-to-back titles. They had a really good run. Coach K, early in his career, had a lot of success, and Bobby Hurley was one of the best point guards in college basketball history. Well, Bob Hurley Sr. is a Hall of Fame coach. He worked with inner city youth for the most part, and he won consistently year in and year out. In fact, I think he won more state championships than any other. I don't know this for a fact, but I'm guessing there's probably no other high school coach that ever or has ever won more state championships than he has. And I mean like in any sport. I think he's got like 26 state championships that he won. It's like most coaches don't even coach as a head coach for 26 if he coached for 30 years, that's a long career. He won 26 state championships, give or take. I'm pretty sure it was 26. I think they might have credited him for 28. Maybe he won some as a player, as an assistant. But anyways, he won more state championships probably than any coach in high school history. And even more important than that, when you hear his players that have graduated, that have gone on, when they interview those players, when they ask those players what they thought of Coach Hurley and what impact he had on them, they have nothing but appreciation for him and helping them become men, the men that they've become as adults, better men, better people. So we're going to learn there was two things that he did that really stood out. And again, talk about 80-20. Bob Hurley was all about he was literally focused on the 10% of things that brought 90% of the success. Bob Hurley was not a master, a jack of all trades. He didn't want to be. He could have been, I'm sure. Bob Hurley Sr., and I'd love to get him on this podcast. I'm working on some interviews for this summer, and man, he's at the top of the list. I got a list of coaches that I'd love to have on here right here in front of me. And I don't want this to become an interview type of podcast because I think it does get into some things that aren't as useful, just direct. I like to be very efficient, even more time as a listener because your weeks are busy, your work schedules, your time, your family time, your practice time. You're busy with your life. So I try to bring it all together, condense it, synthesize it, kind of curate it, and then bring it to you. But I would like to get a couple of these Hall of Fame coaches, some of these that I think are the best ever, and also a few that I worked with over the years that are Hall of Fame coaches. But nevertheless, we're going to talk about what made Bob Hurley Sr. a Hall of Fame coach and what made him get so much appreciation from his players, and what are the two main things he did that we can all do and learn from. And we'll talk about that in next week's get together. All right, I get fired up being here with all of you. I love the feedback, the comments, the emails I'm getting from all of you. Awesome. Check out the website 8020baseball.com. You can also contact me through there, or you can just email me, Coach Bo at 8020baseball.com. Coach Bo. Remember, Bo as in the American athlete Bo, like Bo Jackson, not that French love story soap opera name, Beau. So reach out and we'll go from there. But it's always a pleasure being here with all of you. Thank you for your time. And until next week, you know what I'm going to say here. Take care of your health. Take care of your health so you can be strong for everybody around you. Take care of those families. Keep that going. Keep taking care of your families. And take this information here. Take it out to the field. Take it out there. Apply it. Use it. Trust it. Build upon it. And you will win more games, and you'll change more lives for the better. And it'll just be a win-win-win all around. And until next week's episode, you all take care. Bye.
This has been the 80-20 Baseball Masterclass. Take it to the field.